It turns out that the whole thing was settled long ago. In the ancient grammar of the Sanskrit language composed by Panini, as later elucidated, of course, in the great commentary on the grammar. The historic photograph that you see here captures the exact moment when the gentleman in the center, the late Pandit Trikonakadya Shastri, discovered in a Sanskrit manuscript of the great commentary the precise passage in which the question of the relative superiority of Latkes and Hamantaschen is answered conclusively. And many of you will have recognized all three of these Sanskrit pundits as having been among the most eminent of the scholars appointed to the blue ribbon Latke-Hamantash Commission, which convened in Kashmir a century or two ago, under a grant from the Maharaja of Trikonakadyapur. And I'm sure that the contents of the resulting white paper continue to be a topic of admiring conversation at the dinner tables of most of you in this room. My task, therefore, is simply to remind you of the outlines of the argument offered in the Sanskrit texts. And these are the relevant authorities. The foundational and omniscient grammarian was, of course, Panini himself. And please notice the accent on the first syllable. We're not talking Italian sandwiches here. Panini lived approximately a very long time ago. It was long enough ago, anyway, that Ted Cohen was not there yet. As if he had been there, he would have started counting the years accurately. Now, because of the crafty terseness of Panini, the great commentary on the grammar is also of crucial importance. It was composed later by another guy, and some of you will recall that it pioneered the practice, which I will follow, of presenting its arguments in the form of an imagined oral debate, in which the speaker in any given passage may be interrupted at any point by an objection put in the mouth of a hypothetical opponent. Now, I realize that we already have an oral debate in progress, but since I didn't notice any of my illustrious colleagues on the stage weeping in joy at the mention of Panini's name, I believe I'll go ahead and construct my own imaginary objectors, and I will refer to them in the traditional style as you. Fortunately, the Sanskrit language wisely provides a special word to mark the beginnings of such objections. This word is referred to in German as the objection opening marker particle. The word is nanu. And note that the Sanskrit word nanu is used only once each time. It should not be confused with the reduplicated form of the same word, which is used as a greeting on the planet Orc. Nanu. But the Sanskrit word is made up of two smaller particles. The first one, na, is the negative particle in Sanskrit, so it means, is it not the case that? And the second particle, nu, as I hardly need tell most of you in this audience, asks for a response. And it also marks the fact that the opinion already held by the speaker on the matter in question is so obviously correct that it should be accepted without hesitation, so why is there this delay in providing that response? So whenever you hear me say nanu, that will mark the beginning of an imagined objection to what has just been said. And the great commentary also treats each topic it takes up in a format that contains 5 traditional parts, which of course I can only reproduce in a very shortened form here. And the first 2 of these are quick and easy. The first part is the statement of the topic, which you already know. Which are better, Latkes or Hamantaschen? And for now, you should think of the visual ornament in the lower right as purely decorative. This slide just looked kind of puny without something down there. Now, the second part is traditionally the statement of the operative doubt or question that needs to be answered in dealing with the topic, and in this case the question is, which did Panini prefer? Now, in the great commentary, there's a lot of discussion early on about why one should turn to grammar as the authority on such topics, but in the interest of time, I must omit all of this material except for one especially relevant maxim of great antiquity, quote, "Grammar is the mouth of all the sciences," end quote. And we'll come back to the mouth in the final part. Similarly, there's a long discussion about why it should be the grammarian Panini whose opinion we value rather than any other grammarian. And this too I will have to admit I'll have to leave that out in the interest of, well, of interest. So you can talk to Dan about that. I'll move on to part 3, which is where the real debate starts, by providing an opportunity for the opposing view to be aired at the outset. So part 3 is the statement of a preliminary stance, which is put in the mouth of an imagined opponent. That would be the man in the turban. And as you can see, the precise identity of the speaker in this part is often left rather indistinct. But what he has to say is this: Panini preferred latkes. You will object, Nanu? Are you crazy? Neither the word latka nor the word Hamantash appears anywhere in the complete concordance of the grammar of Panini and the great commentary on the grammar, which was compiled by Professor Otto von Dreieckekassen with the assistance of Miss Annapurna Trikonakadya Nandamalu. To this objection, we reply that Panini did not feel it necessary to explain every detail explicitly, but instead he left hints, pointing to his opinions, the identification of which is the main purpose of the great commentary on the grammar. And on the basis of those hints, it can be shown, through both negative and positive arguments, that Panini was a Latka man. First, the negative argument. Grammatical evidence indicates that Panini was not even aware of Hamantaschen. And you must not object, saying, Nanu, how dare you suggest that Panini was ignorant on any topic? Such an objection is improper because it was you yourself who first raised the issue of Panini's ignorance, while we have already established our own trust in Panini's prescient wisdom by maintaining that he was fond of latkes at a time some 2,000 years before the potato was first brought to the Indian subcontinent. And that he did not know the Hamantash can be shown on grammatical grounds by the etymology of the word Hamantaschen itself. This has 2 parts. The first part is a proper name from some land to the west of India. The second part, Taschen, has a clear Indo-European etymology, like most Sanskrit words, and refers, as Dan has told us, to pockets. Now, as to pockets, it's well known that in Panini's time, the standard costume consisted of 3 rectangular pieces of unstitched cloth. A large rectangle, which is wrapped around the lower body as a dhoti. A smaller rectangle, which was carried on the upper body as a sort of shawl. And a long rectangle, which was wound around the head as a turban. And there are 2 things to note about these rectangles. First, none of them is in the shape of a triangle. And second, there's not a pocket to be seen anywhere in any of them. So Panini didn't know from Hamantaschen. Now, for the positive argument, this rests, of course, on the etymology of the word latka, which is a diminutive form from another Indo-European language, made from a word referring to oily things, and cognate with the Greek word for olive oil. And it's a commonplace of Sanskrit grammar, which is known even to first-year Sanskrit students at the University of Chicago by the 4th or 5th week of the autumn quarter, that words for oiliness or stickiness in Sanskrit refer metaphorically to fondness. So that to say, for example, he is stuck on latkes means he loves latkes.